The sound of breaking glass cut through the cozy chatter of the small-town diner like a knife. People froze with forks in midair, conversations halted mid-sentence. It was one of those moments where time seemed to stand still, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. At a corner booth, a young woman in her early 30s, with tired eyes and a fragile smile, clutched her purse to her chest. Two men bigger than her by half, reeking of arrogance and cheap liquor, loomed over her, their shadows swallowing her in fear. No one moved. Not the waitress gripping her notepad with trembling hands, not the old man by the counter who slowly lowered his coffee cup. Fear has a way of paralyzing a room. But in the back, near the window where the light from the street lamp spilled across his table, one man quietly set down the spoon he was using to stir sugar into his coffee. He looked up, not with anger, not with fear, but with the steady, sharp calm of someone who had seen chaos before and knew exactly how to step into it. That man was Jack Carter. A single dad, barely scraping by, raising a 10-year-old daughter named Emily. To most people in town, he was just another quiet father trying to make ends meet, working odd jobs during the day and spending his evenings with his little girl. What they didn't know was that beneath his calm exterior lived the instincts of a warrior, forged in places most people never wanted to imagine. Jack wasn't just another man. He had once been Navy. The two men grew louder, their words dripping with threat as they demanded the woman's purse. She pleaded softly, her voice breaking as tears welled in her eyes. One of the attackers grabbed her wrist, and that was it. In less than 15 seconds, the entire restaurant would learn who Jack Carter really was. Jack rose without hesitation, his chair sliding back with a screech that sliced through the tension. His footsteps were steady, measured, like a storm gathering strength. The men barely noticed him until his hand clamped down on the first attacker's shoulder with a grip that felt like steel. In a blur, Jack twisted the man's arm behind his back and sent him crashing face-first onto the table, silverware clattering to the floor. The second attacker lunged, but Jack's training kicked in, calm, precise, unstoppable. A single sidestep, a strike to the chest, and the man stumbled backward, air knocked out of him. In less than 15 seconds, both men were on the ground, groaning, disarmed not by brute force but by the controlled precision of someone who had fought for survival before. The diner erupted into whispers and gasps. The young woman clutched her purse tightly, tears streaming down her face as she whispered, "Thank you." Jack said nothing. He didn't crave recognition. He only checked the woman's trembling hands to make sure she was safe, then glanced toward the counter where his daughter Emily sat, wide-eyed, clutching her small backpack. He gave her a reassuring nod, the kind only a father could give, a silent promise that he would always protect. But that night wasn't the end of the story, it was just the beginning. The police arrived minutes later, handcuffing the attackers and taking statements from the shaken witnesses. Everyone had questions. Who was this man? How did he move like that? Why did he seem so calm in a moment of pure chaos? But Jack avoided the spotlight. He held Emily's hand, ready to walk her home. That's when the young woman, still shaken but grateful, caught up to him outside. "My name is Sarah," she said softly. "You saved me in there, but who are you really?" Jack paused. He didn't like to talk about his past. The Navy had given him skills that saved lives, but it had also cost him nearly everything: his marriage, his peace, and almost his ability to connect with the world outside uniform. But Sarah's eyes held more than curiosity. They held the same kind of loneliness Jack carried. "I'm just a dad," he said finally. "That's all that matters now." Over the next few weeks, however, life began to change. The diner incident spread across town like wildfire. Some whispered about him being dangerous, others admired his courage. Emily's friends at school began asking questions she didn't know how to answer. For Jack, the hardest challenge wasn't fighting off attackers, it was facing the weight of being truly seen after years of trying to disappear into quiet fatherhood. Sarah, too, had her own struggles. She was a widow, raising a small boy, and had been fighting her battles in silence: financial struggles, loneliness, and the constant fear of not being strong enough for her child. When Jack saved her that night, it wasn't just her safety he protected. He reminded her that there were still people in this world who would stand up when others froze. Slowly, she and Jack began to cross paths more often, at the diner, at the grocery store, and eventually at the park where their children played together. But life wasn't kind to people like Jack. The same attackers he stopped that night weren't just random drunks, they were tied to a larger group that didn't take humiliation lightly. Word spread in the shadows, and soon Jack found himself being followed, watched, his past Navy instincts warning him that something wasn't right. He tried to hide it from Emily, but Sarah noticed the way his eyes scanned every room they entered, the way he positioned himself between the children and the door. The next test of his strength didn't come in a restaurant, but outside his own home. One evening, as Emily and Sarah's boy played inside, Jack confronted two men lingering near his driveway. The confrontation turned ugly fast, but once again Jack's Navy training kept him in control. The police became involved, and suddenly, the truth about his past came spilling out into the open. Everyone in town now knew, Jack Carter wasn't just a single dad. He was a former Navy man, someone who had faced dangers most people couldn't imagine. And that revelation brought mixed emotions. Some feared him. Others respected him. But the most important part was what Emily felt. She looked up at her father not just as her protector, but as someone who had chosen love and peace over violence, someone who fought only when he had no choice. By the end of it all, Jack and Sarah found strength in each other's brokenness. Two single parents, both carrying heavy pasts, realized that maybe, just maybe, they didn't have to carry their burdens alone anymore. The story of that night in the diner became something larger than just an act of courage. It became a reminder that true strength isn't about domination, it's about protection, sacrifice, and love. Jack had saved Sarah, but in time, Sarah and their children saved him too, teaching him that even a man trained for war could still find peace in family. So the next time you find yourself frozen in a moment of fear or doubt, remember Jack Carter, the single dad who reminded an entire town that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it simply stands up when others stay seated. Sparkles, if this story touched your heart, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Would you have stepped in if you were in Jack's place? Or do you believe true courage is something deeper than fighting? And don't forget, if you enjoy stories of resilience, love, and courage, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Be kind always. Hit the like button, share this with a friend, and remember, the world could always use more kindness.